Comedian?
Yeah, that's Michael Loftus. He whatever.
God.
I'll forgive the comedian more than I'll forgive Kevin Sorbo and freaking Dean Cain. But it's great. They have these culture wars. They did their Dr. Seuss thing. They refuse to actually face these questions. That's what's so amazing. They're talking about how we don't want to indoctrinate people, but they're looking to indoctrinate people. They want the simple good versus evil version of things. That's indoctrination. Yeah. And you're telling me that the guy who's a walking, talking American flag is just now propaganda? It's insane. And also a similar thing like this happened in the 80s where there was where there was a fascist guy who was patriotism run amok, and he turned into fanaticism, and it all just went insane. And Captain America's the one saying like, let's include some people. And he's not alone. It's actually what's written on the Statue of Liberty. And he's just pointing out that America needs to follow through on the promises it made. But I love it. I love that it's like now Captain America, who punched Nazis in the face, is now trying to tell us who's the good guy and the bad guy.
Well, to be fair, they would probably have a problem with that too now. He's got America in his name and he's a soldier. There's gonna be a little bit of politics in it. There always has been, and not just in him, but in Batman and in Superman. Get whatever washed up actors you want or whatever. There's politics in it. There always has been. They don't mind it sometimes. They do other times again. So they try to make this about censorship or being woke or cancel culture. All of that is BS. That's just a narrative to try to control the only thing that's actually happening, which is people like some things and don't like others. That's fine, you're allowed to. But we don't have to play into this idea that one side's wrong for being that way and the other side is awesome and patriotic for being that way. So anyway, good garbage person, Brett. That was tough. Man, that comedian, whew. It's gotta be a backup job or something. But anyway, my garbage person of the week is, I think, maybe the biggest villain of the year. Although, as I show you this video, it's gonna take a second for you to realize why. First off, there's the racial harassment, which will be obvious, and then it gets even worse after that. But here is a woman filmed in New York City.
Alicia? Have you never heard of Alicia in the city? Really? Really? Okay, we'll wait for the police to clear it up.
Yeah, go call them. Karen, please, Karen, call them. Karen, get your phone now and call the police.
I'm just waiting for him to come by.
And which country should I go back to, Karen? Huh? Say it. Now you can't got your tongue?
Can't get my tongue?
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah.
Edit it out. Go ahead, edit.
Edit what out?
Come on, puppy.
What about no?
Come on.
That's incredible. I'm just passing by, and you're actually trying to instigate the dog to go into the middle of a highway? What kind of problem do you have, lady?
Like, seriously, put it out there. Put it out there that you can walk around without your dog on a leash.
You know what? Put it out there that you can insult someone of Asian descent, and then also try and instigate a dog to go in the middle of the street because you're on principle or whatever reason. Why don't you go back where you came from?
We'll put a leash in your country.
Oh yeah, which country is that? Bola, come here. Bola, come, Bola. Come here.
Great. You're lovely. Come on, puppy. Come.
So that's a woman who rightly wanted them to have their dog on a leash, I guess. That is the law, but that doesn't mean you can then do whatever you want. And certainly not including telling him to go back to his country, or do they not leash in his country? He was apparently Asian American. I don't have any more details about him than that. So that's awful. But then to try to get the dog killed in the street, trying multiple times desperately to try to get it to go into the road so it would be hit by a car, that's a level more violent than we generally get in these sorts of videos. And obviously the dog stuff makes it personal for me, but she was awful in several different ways. Also, you should know, she's been in other videos that have gone viral, trying to stop skateboarders from being able to openly skateboard and stuff. So this is like, if a Karen is a busybody, that's a sort of inherent part of it. She is working overtime in that area, Brett.
Yeah, it's a tiny dog, a little fluff pot dog. And there's the difference between like, oh, your dog should be on a leash because it's something terrible is gonna happen, and then trying to make something terrible happen. That's insanity. And there's two other videos of her. I think indisputable they're gonna cover them on Monday, where she's in a park and she's got like another thing where someone's speaking in perfectly clear English to her and she's like, I don't understand you because you're Asian.
Yeah, and by the way, her stuff about like editing it out, it didn't make any sense. I don't know what you're actually saying. But anyway, obvious garbage person for me. But you've also chosen one. So the community garbage person of the week, thank you to everybody who voted. Coming in at number 5 this week with 7% of the vote is Representative Fallon for trading Boeing stock while on the Arms Committee. We did an interview with Dave Leventhal about that. I love that made it onto the list. That's awesome. Number 4 this week with 8% of the vote, Tomi Lahren for calling flight attendants Nazis of the air. Ugh. Number 3 with 13% of the vote, Rudy Giuliani supporters for asking for $5 million to fund Rudy, that terrible crowdfunding effort. Number 2 with 20% of the vote, Candace Owens for using her platform to promote anti-vax rhetoric. It's terrible, but nobody can come close at 52% of the vote to our community garbage person of the week, Jesse Waters, for saying stolen native land was won by the US. And that's kind of a charitable interpretation. It was far more violent and savage than that. So thank you to everybody who voted. Thank you to everybody for supporting the Dragon Squad throughout this year on our anniversary. Thank you, Brett, for returning. Love that you're here with whatever.
You would love this. Sorry, we ordered something from Omaha Steaks. This is an apple tart, something that was frozen recently and now warm. Happy birthday to everyone! I'm going to need your help. Entire Dragon Squad, please get close to your screen, and on the count of 3, blow it out with me. 1, 2, 3. Good.
It worked.
I did. I tried to ventriloquist that. Thank you all so much. Yeah, you guys need to work on your internet speed. Happy birthday, Dragon Squad.
Thank you, everybody. Indisputable is coming up, so stick around and I'll see you on the power panel. But for now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
It's Friday. What's happening? Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richard. Good to have you here. We have a packed show for you today. I got breaking down the news with me, the big homie, Wosny Lambre, host of Wosny at 10 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. You can find that on Twitch. Host of Woke Bros and also writer at The Ringer. He will break down the news today with me. My debate guest in the bullpen, congressional candidate for the 26th Congressional District out of California, Ronda Baldwin-Kennedy. That should be interesting. We're gonna chop it up about some of those campaign items that she is running on. And Molly Jung-Fast, editor-at-large of the Daily Beast and author, will join me later in the show. Let's get into my top news. You know, we keep talking about police officers should do things that are decent, that we need more good cops in the world. We need officer friendly. We need community minded policing. We say this, and I get criticized a lot because people have a big misunderstanding about me. I do not bash cops, I bash bad cops. I do not indict good cops. I indict in the court of public opinion bad cops. That's what I do. There's a good cop in the world. He's out of Syracuse. This good cop is now suing his department for discrimination. Let me give you some background as to what happened. Black Syracuse police officer has now been disciplined for listening to rap music days after filing a racial bias claim. Now keep this in mind. The rap music that's on the social media post that they are referring to isn't even coming from his vehicle. He's not the person playing the rap music, in other words. But they decided to discipline this police officer for having rap music while being on social media somewhere around him. The background to this is quite amazing. This is one of those officers who routinely interacts with the community. He plays basketball with children on a regular basis. He has a program to buy them tennis shoes. As a matter of fact, I want you to see this for yourself. This is Officer Brandon Hanks. Let's play some of that video.
Get that on camera too.
Oh, I got it.
That's King on the shoot.
13, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Come on. Too easy, girl. Too easy.
Ooh.
No, give me the left for real.
Oh.
Not want to go in. Make sure you got it.
Give me one.
The man got skills, son. He got skills. So here's what he does. He doesn't do this as a one-off. He does this on a regular basis. And if one of them can actually beat him in a game of basketball, he literally purchased shoes for them. But he is well known in that local community as being the liaison, the bridge between the community and law enforcement. Now here's what happened. He was up for a promotion. He's up for a promotion and his captain denies him of the promotion. And then his captain puts in writing, the reason we're denying him for this promotion is because he is gang affiliated, is a narcotics trafficker, and listens to rap music. I kid you not, ladies and gentlemen, this was put in writing by his captain to deny him of his promotion. Now just think about this. You have a captain of a police division saying that you deal drugs, that you are gang affiliated. Now they're not trying to indict you, they're not investigating you, they're not trying to arrest you. He just put it on the report, put it in writing in order to stop you from advancing. You see, this police officer represents the new face of what police officers should be. And I'm sure he is going against the grain, not just in the community, but also inside, based on the commentary that we see around this police officer. Let's bring up another one of those pictures. The police officer tying the shoe of the young man. Remarkable picture. Now see, he didn't do that for a photo op because according to the narrative, he does this all the time. This is just who he is. A high profile black police officer who filed a Syracuse racial discrimination claim last month, was reprimanded days later for posting a video that included him listening to rap music. The reprimand came 6 days after Syracuse.com did a story about this legal action against the police department. Now, Officer Brandon Hanks, a hometown cop once seen as a bridge between the department and the black community, is accusing the city of retaliation too. So they get him first on stopping him from advancing, stopping him from receiving a promotion, putting something so egregious in writing that if true, he should be arrested. And then days after he says, this is discrimination, and big ups to him for even saying it. Big ups to him for not going along with the good old boy system. He files the claim. 6 days after that, what do? They go on his social media account, and because some damn rap music is playing in the background, they give him a reprimand. Remember, in the initial complaint about why he should not receive the promotion, part of the complaint was he listens to rap music. How in the hell can listening to rap music stop you from becoming promoted in law enforcement? Big Woz, your thoughts?
You know, like we always say, Rashad, the problem is cultural. It's systemic. In a culture like policing in America, they don't like when you stick out. They don't like cops making celebrities of themselves within the community by just being a human being to the people that they police, by making themselves apart from the department that he represents. They're not gonna like that. So when you try to empower yourself, you try to move up within the ranks, they're gonna be like, here's a guy who doesn't fall in line. Not here's a guy who's doing his job as well as he possibly can. It's here's a guy who sticks out from the rest of us, and we have to stamp out dissent at every single turn, even if we go as so far as to accuse one of our own of committing crimes, whether it be drug dealing or being gang affiliated. Now, I will say this one last thing, Doc, and I'll hand it back to you. I come from the era of Jay-Z, Nas, Biggie Smalls, Wu-Tang Clan, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I come from. And there's some rap music these days that you probably should get fired for playing. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not even gonna hold you.
But that's the thing, Big Woz. He wasn't the guy playing the rap music. Right. He went on social media, and so rap music happened to be in the background, and so they used that as a reason to reprimand this police officer days, obviously, after he filed the complaint. There are some significant actions that I think we should highlight and pay attention to. One, obviously, is the way he engages with the community. That is significant and that is worth noting. But two, is the fact that he's willing to not stand by and allow this to happen without making a proclamation public. I know many police officers who have said to me off record, hey, it's discrimination inside of the police agencies. We face discrimination too. And I've heard police officers say to me, well, Rashad, we face discrimination at work, and then because we're cops, we face discrimination in our own community. Well, this police officer said, okay, here's what I'm going to do with this discrimination. I'm not playing the game with these officers. I'm going to make a public claim showing exactly what they have done. So I think those actions are significant, and they are required for good cops to stand up for themselves.
Yeah, what he's doing is quite brave, honestly, Rashad, because generally what they'll do when you're not falling in line is they lobby threats. They say at some point out on the line of duty, you're gonna need somebody to quote unquote have your back. You never know one day when this brother's out there trying to handle something and he needs backup, where all of a sudden they got held up for something, or people are 2 minutes late or 3 minutes late when they could have been there right on time. What he's doing is quite brave, because let's face it, man, the cops make the official story of whatever it is that happens out on the street. And if something were to happen to him out in the line of duty, God forbid, they could easily just be like, look, there was an ice cream truck, there was this, we couldn't get there. Like, so he's doing something that's quite brave, publicly going against the guys that he works with. But you gotta respect it because he's standing on something that's righteous.
Quite fascinating. Now I'm going to provide contrast, Waz. There's another police officer. This police officer has been convicted of murdering a suicidal man. Convicted of murdering a suicidal man. Huntsville police continue to pay an officer convicted of murder. Do you hear me? Continue to pay a cop who was convicted of murder, an officer awaiting sentencing for fatally shooting a man who was threatening suicide. So his name is Officer William Ben Darby. Let's put his picture up. William Ben Darby is out on bond and still employed by the Huntsville police, though he is not on active duty. Now this is a little complex, so here's your background. Records show that Darby has been on sick leave since a jury found him guilty 2 months ago. He is off work under the Family and Medical Leave Act, a federal law requiring employers to allow workers unpaid extended time off for medical or family emergencies. The man has been convicted of murder, and he is still getting paid. Now, how are they pulling this off? The police department employees received an email, now check this out, asking them to donate leave time to an unnamed employee with an undisclosed medical condition. So I guess being convicted of murder is an undisclosed medical condition for white people. Because I've never heard of this disease before, ever. When a copy of the email was reviewed, it was sent from, guess who? The chief of police, Chief Mark McMurray's email account on May 20th, less than 2 weeks after Darby's conviction. So he gets convicted, follow the line with me, everyone. He gets convicted of murder. After he's convicted of murder, an email goes out from the chief, from his email account that says, hey, we need you employees to donate some of your hours because of a bad situation that happened to somebody, and we're not gonna tell you who it is. It's a medical thing, okay? When asked whether Darby is the unnamed employee, McMurray said he did not know the person's identity. Hold the hell up. You're the chief, you approved the sick time, vacation time, the medical leave time, and your response is, oh yeah, I don't know the person's identity. It gets deeper. The email was sent the same day the city announced to the public that Darby was on leave. There's more. The federal law could prevent the city from pursuing a hearing to terminate his employment while he is on FMLA. So this federal law is so strong that it might stop them from being able to really just stop his employment, even though he has been convicted of murder. You have to provide that context every time. On May 7th, a Madison County jury found Darby guilty of murder for shooting and killing Jeff Parker 3 years ago. The shooting happened when Parker called police and reported that he was armed and suicidal. Darby testified that he shot Parker in defense of himself and other officers because he feared Parker might shoot them, what later turned out to be a flare gun. The body camera video showed Darby grab a shotgun from his patrol car and sprint to the house. Darby testified that he had to take over the situation from a senior officer because he believed she was putting herself in danger by talking to Parker. Darby fired the fatal shot 11 seconds after entering the house. That's according to the video. So the police officers who were there, they knew it was not a deadly situation. They did not commit murder. He came in literally guns blazing, commits murder. This person is already suicidal. The other officers are trying to de-escalate. He commits murder. He gets convicted of committing murder. And this piece of is still employed by that police department. But they don't want to give Officer Friendly a promotion. Come on now. Waz, your thoughts?
It's not a lot to add to that. That's plain as day. It tells you what type of culture we have in the policing system here in America. And I think, there are gonna be people who will watch your segment and say, well, hold on, Dr. Rishi, one happened in Syracuse, New York. Another happened in Huntsville, Alabama. These are two completely different police department situations, et cetera, et cetera. And I would say to them, that's not true. We see officer-involved police shootings of unarmed people, black men obviously at disproportionate rates, but people generally all over the country. It don't matter if it's Minnesota, don't matter if it's Los Angeles, don't matter if it's New York, don't matter if it's Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, it happens. We see that officers are rarely convicted, no matter where you are in the country. We see that officers rarely ever testify against other officers and step up and say the terrible things that their fellow officers are doing, no matter where you are in the country. So I say all that to say this is one police culture. There's one way to police. When you walk into a house and you shoot a freaking guy who needs help because he's suffering from mental health issues, you're doing the job. We're gonna hold you down. We got your back. When you're in the community and you're trying to ingratiate yourself with the people that you're basically policing, no. We don't like that. You're acting outside of the bounds of what has been accepted police practice. Shooting a freaking guy, killing him, is within the bounds. We're gonna do what we have to do to make sure you get paid, your family's taken care of as long as we can, as you've been convicted of a crime. But being a nice cop, that's out of line. That's out of line, Doc. Can't do that. We can't have it.
It is fascinating that they're able to get away with this. You literally have a police officer convicted of murder. The justice system actually worked. He was held accountable for the murder that took place. And then you have something happening that is extrajudicial, outside of that judicial chamber, known as his employment. And even though he is employed by the city of Huntsville, he is getting paid through tax dollars. This guy is convicted of murder. Now, you can't even hold a job at a fast food restaurant being convicted of murder. But you can hold a job as a police officer. You can be on leave and still obtain a check. You mean to tell me that the good taxpayers of Huntsville, they have to foot the bill for an actual convicted murderer inside of the police department?
I mean, Doc, I'll take it one step further. You sell some weed, you get convicted of an F, you come back, people have a right to not hire you. We ever, as a society, we withhold your right to freaking vote. This guy gets convicted of murdering somebody, and the cops are like, no, let's pay him. Let's give him money.
Yeah, and at the center of this is obviously the police chief, who is claiming he doesn't really know who's receiving the money. Damn it, I know who's receiving the money. That police officer is receiving the money, who should literally be locked away for a very long time. Justice, even when the wheels of justice turn in the right direction, this is why people get so irritated about stories like this and situations, scenarios like this, because the wheels of justice actually turned the right way. You know how difficult that was? You just named it, Woz. It's damn near impossible to get these convictions of police officers in the United States of America. You actually land a conviction. You don't land a manslaughter conviction. You don't land a negligent homicide conviction. You land a murder conviction. You literally land a murder conviction by a police officer in the line of duty, which is damn near virtually impossible. It doesn't really happen much. And then the agency of policing, the culture of policing, they step up, and by their design, they decide to have the criminals back rather than have the taxpayers back, as they do typically. Amazing. All right, we got more on the other side. It's indisputable, stick and stay.
Damn it, they failed us. And if you're not angry about that, Michael, and any of you out there, then you're damn wrong, because you should be angry. Young Turks.
It was genuine. He was mad.
Cenk Uygur, known online as one of the Young Turks, isn't afraid to throw some punches.
3, 2, 1, fade up.
Cenk the Turk Uygur.
What kind of TV station is this? The whole point is for me to yell and scream and tell you what I think.
It was right out of like Wayne's World.
This guy on this little rinky-dink website is speaking truth to power.
We've been averaging 600,000 views a day, beating most of the cable shows in America.
We're the largest online news show in the world.
We're celebrating our 1 billionth view.
Television, we're coming.
More politics ahead with Cenk Uygur.
He knew that the MSNBC opportunity was an experiment.
And Phil and host beat CNN and Headline News combined. At some point, they want to give me a show.
Every single year, that comes out of our paycheck. We put it in, and you're saying we were suckers.
When you, as a host, tells someone you're interviewing to shut up, that's going to raise a red flag.
That guy needed a tall glass of shut up juice.
If President Obama's doing the wrong thing, I'm not going to tell you that he's doing the right thing so I can, quote, support him.
He says to me, "You won't believe the meeting that I just had."
The head of MSNBC talked to me.
They want him off the air.
Cenk took an incredible risk.
We're supposed to challenge the government. That's the role of the media. The Democrats and the Republicans are here to screw you. And who on the air is saying it?
I wouldn't have done what he did.
That if I'm going to be a talk show host, I should be the biggest talk show host in the country. I don't think anyone else does it better. I don't think anyone's even close.
Before you know it, I'll be back on your TV doing a national show. I guarantee it.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're gonna help us run the country.
Like this.
It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolfpack.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us. Whoa, democracy!
United!
We are!
We are!
Too strong! There's thousands of volunteers, and you can be among them. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good.
This is just the beginning.
Knock, knock. We're coming for them! Wolf-pack.com.
Mayweather will knock out Pacquiao. Floyd beats his wife.
Okay, I get it. You're progressive. You're looking for other progressive voices. Why? Because you want real progress to happen. You're tired of the why, regular stuff. You should be checking out the Young Turks. Why? Because who else is going to have Killer Mike talking about politics and social issues in his new TV show, Trigger Warning?
My dad wrote the story of his life. It's called The Original Young Turk. It's a book on shoptyt.com. Part of the story is how I became progressive. Now, he doesn't write about that per se, but in his life story, you see, oh my God, when a community helps one another, when the government also chips in and gives you free education, anything is possible. He went from an incredibly poor olive farmer to living the American dream.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me go to some of these viewer comments. We got a lot of them. I will read as many as I can. Remember to always subscribe on the YouTube channel, Indisputable TYT, Indisputable TYT. It is free to subscribe. Make sure that happens. We're at 127,000 subscribers. 127,000, and that's because of you. And I thank you for that. All right. Let's get it. TYT member Elected Miscellaneous says, cops often talk about the color blue, thin blue line, the blue code, bleeding blue. Cops are a family. They stick together. But cases like this show that the only color that really matters for a lot of white cops is skin color. It doesn't matter if you're blue, if your skin is brown or black. YouTube super chat. Kira Venus, thank you for that. Bernie, the Kiwi Dragon. How does this chief not know who the murderer police officer is? Or does he have many more than one under him that he can't work out who it is? I'm sorry to laugh at that. You have to laugh, not to cry, by the way, because that may have some truth to it, all right? He doesn't know which person he's covering for at the moment. Laughing Hyena says, Atlanta in the house. That's right, ATL, A-Town down. Luann, sounds like the kind of cop we need more of, talking about the good cop. Yeah. Bad cop. Not sure says FMLA strong enough to protect a murderer, but if you work for one of the biggest banks in the world, MetLife would do anything to deny coverage. Exactly. Twitch about the good cop. Pow nobody now. That's a Goody Mob reference, by the way. I get it. Good cops being punished and bad cops getting rewarded sounds about right. Peachy Sherry says, so what is acceptable music in Syracuse? Classical, Christian, country, anything by a white artist? Pathetic. And Alaskans Now Dragon 2021 says, you sure can tie a double Windsor, Dr. Richie. Most are tiny, wrinkly, and crooked. Thank you. I do have to take a few shots at it usually. All right. Next story, very sad story, but it's worth our attention because this is an upcoming case. St. Louis police, they were accused of killing an elderly grandfather while sleeping. This was during a raid. Now this actually happened back in 2017. The family now has their resources together. They are now filing suit against the police department. A family in St. Louis has filed a federal lawsuit in response to a police raid that claimed the life of their loved one 4 years ago, okay? This is one of the most sad stories I've seen in a long time. In 2017, officers with the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department Special Weapons and Tactics team unlawfully stormed into the home of Don Clark Sr. on a falsified no-knock search warrant and killed the 63-year-old Army veteran and grandfather who was suffering from vision and hearing loss, limited mobility, and a range of health issues. In federal court, Mr. Clark's children filed a lawsuit against St. Louis City and 21 named SLMPD officers alleging wrongful death and violations of the 4th and 14th Amendments. Let's get a picture of Mr. Clark Sr. That's him with some members of his family. According to the lawsuit, a SWAT team of more than 17 officers rammed into Clark's home while he was sleeping without prior warning. The officers lobbed a flashbang into his home and then shot at him at least 9 times, according to the lawsuit. A little more background. That night, Mr. Clark's residence was one of 3 homes on the South City block where no-knock warrants would be executed following SLMPD detective Thomas Stroh's use of identical affidavits to apply for the warrants. That's a no-no, by the way, despite the fact that Mr. Clark had never been convicted of a crime. Mr. Clark, he's dead. He was asleep. This never should have happened to him. I want you to see another picture of Mr. Clark in his uniform, justice for Don Clark Sr. The Arch City Defender, they're leading this lawsuit against the city, against these police officers. I wonder, are we going to hear those who support military veterans come out and support Mr. Don Clark? Are they going to come out and say, this was a tragedy, this man served the nation and he was killed in his sleep by law enforcement. This is a tragedy, this has to stop. We need police reform now. We need to pass the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act now. We need to get rid of no-knock warrants now. We need to disrupt the corruption in law enforcement now. But what are they saying? Nothing. They're not even talking about Mr. Don Clark Sr. They're not talking about this lawsuit, but we are. Let me go to the picture of him with his, I think, grandchild at Christmas. They killed a good man who already had compromised health. He was asleep. They raided his home. He did nothing illegal. Never at 63 years of age, as a black man in America, had never had issues with law enforcement until he went to sleep that night. We will follow this story. A federal suit has been filed. Woz, what are your thoughts about this case?
It's interesting to me because in America, this is kind of the land of, or we claim for it to be the land of accountability, right? People get sued, people get thrown in jail, people get this, people get that for the dumbest things, by the way. We say, well, you need to be held responsible. Well, when a man's life gets taken away for absolutely no reason, as you mentioned with the shenanigans, with the affidavit, with the way, you can't tell me the way you guys carried out that warrant was by the book. So who's paying the price for skirting the rules, not doing their job at every single turn throughout the process that ends in the murder of an innocent man? You know, like, who pays for that? Like, I'm sure, hopefully at the end of this lawsuit, some sort of financial damages and restitution will be paid to the family that this guy got left behind. But yo, this was a human life that was lost here. Who pays for that? You know, that's what comes to my mind, because for certain things we go and we look at, hey man, who hired the dude that issued the warrant? Who was with him? Who could have stopped it? Who could have this? For certain things, we do that level of sort of, scrutiny when there are things that are considered to be huge F-ups.
Yeah.
But these kinds of things in our society aren't considered to be huge mess ups. It's just the cost of doing business to certain people. And that's the saddest part about this, is that nobody's actually gonna have to pay for this.
Yeah, and that's the other side of the coin, where people all across this country should be outraged by this kind of action. Because let's say, for the sake of argument wise, let's say this was just extreme negligence. Well, that negligence didn't just show up for Mr. Clark. That negligence or disregard for human life exists in policing. It exists in that department. And this is not the first time they decided to bend the corners or take a shortcut. Not the first time. It may be the first time it became news, but it's not the first time they did it, this team, this SWAT team. And now you have a real question to answer. And this is the question: are you going to do something about policing in your city? Are you going to actually take up an advocacy position to make sure policing is better in your community? Because if you keep ignoring it, if you keep saying it just happens in silos, it does not happen as part of a systemic expression. If you keep doing that, you keep ignoring them knocking at your neighbor's door, they are going to knock at your door. And when they knock at your door, you're looking for everyone else to stand up with you and stand up for you. Well, where were you when they were knocking on everybody else's door? And that's what's happening. Policing as a culture is simply getting out of control. People are dying. Now, many would push back and say, well, Rashad, look at what happened in this encounter. If the black person would have did this, if they just would have done that, if they just would have turned left rather than turn right, whatever it is, right? What can you say about Mr. Clark? If Mr. Clark would not have been sleeping that hard, he would have woke up and realized he was being shot. What are you going to say about Mr. Clark? Nothing. You don't get more peaceful than being asleep and 63 years old. This man was killed because of bad and criminally negligent policing. And what happens next? Is there a policy change? Is there a new direction in policing? Or do we continue to politicize the matter and act like it's a Dems versus Republican conversation?
Yeah, if recent history is any indication, nothing will probably come of this. And I think what people need to bear in mind is that the cops are sort of carrying out the initiatives of the people who are well-to-do in our society, right? Because it's on them. It's on the well-to-doers, the people who don't have to worry about no-knock warrants being served at their house in order to change this, until those people wake up and be like, hold on, this is wrong. This is messed up. Because we see it every time, right? Like, I think the prime example of what we're talking about, Dr. Richie, when it comes to how we sort of prosecute what we consider to be crimes, is the opioid epidemic.
Yep.
All of a sudden, when it's touching a certain type of person, a certain type of neighborhood, it's like, hold on, we need care, we need empathy. We need to treat these people like human beings all of a sudden. But when there was a crack epidemic, we did something different. So, I'm afraid to say it, but like until well-to-do people are affected by this, nothing's gonna change.
You make an amazing point that I completely agree with. We criminalized crack addicts and we said those on opioids are patients. When the truth is they were all worthy of our compassion and worthy of care and wraparound services from the beginning. Addiction can be treated. But brother, once again, I try to do what I can do to warn people. You have to work as a coalition. And I'm talking about everybody, not just black folk. I'm talking about black folk, brown folk, white folk. We have to work together as a unified front to disrupt the madness that we see taking place in the United States of America. Let me shift gears. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
You're feel free. Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life.
All right, you know what we do. We follow Karens of the world because Karens are dangerous. Ladies and gentlemen, let me bring your attention to the latest Karen. This Karen was texting while driving. Well, many states have passed laws that make it illegal to text while drive. And listen, if you're playing that game, sometimes you get caught, sometimes you don't. Well, this Karen got caught. During the traffic stop, recorded on a police body camera and later posted online, a Karen is shown arguing with a police officer after she has been pulled over for texting while driving. Here's some of that video.
Just so you know, also walking up to a woman's car, you should have pulled me over. You're lucky I didn't have my pepper spray on me because you scared the ever living out of me as a woman.
If you weren't going through emails, sir, you would probably be more observant.
I'm not trying to be, and I'm telling you, as a woman, I'm actually shaking right now because you scared the ever living out of me.
Well, I've made over 7,000 traffic stops, and I've never been pepper sprayed.
But I understand that, sir. But I'm telling you, as a woman, you made me feel unsafe.
Okay, I'm a public safety official, ma'am.
I understand that, but please listen to what I am saying because you're not listening because you're seeing this through the eyes of me trying to get out of a ticket, which I'm not.
Oh, you won't get out of it, yeah.
Sir,
I can assure you of that.
As a public employee, I am letting you know, as somebody who is a person who pays your salary. But sir, please.
No, I'm no longer going to listen to you.
The woman said, "You are lucky I didn't have my mace." Wait a minute. This is an amazing thing that we've just learned here. So Karens can literally threaten a police officer with mace. The officer did not get upset. I mean, he was a police officer. He said, "You're gonna get this ticket still," but he was still very courteous and very respectful. But this is just amazing to me that this particular Karen, after receiving the citation, it's just a citation. She threatens to physically harm the police officer. But, let her tell it, she is not threatening. She's a law-abiding individual. But the privilege is staggering, staggering. I've been pulled over a few times. I got a lead foot, I will admit to it. I have never told a cop, I have never told a police officer, bro, you lucky I didn't have my mace on me. I mean, I promise you, I would have received more than a citation that day. Waz, what are your thoughts about this video, man?
Couple of things. I do want to say this first and foremost. We gave props to that brother out in Syracuse for being a great cop, doing the job the way it should be done. I want to commend this brother for comporting himself the way he did with this hostile woman. She was hostile. At the same time, you know what this reminded me of? I know you remember this, Dr. Rich. Remember there was that video a few years ago of a pool party out in Houston, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
Where it was a bunch of young black kids and the dude wrestled the young lady to the ground and was very aggressive with her. What I will say is like, I don't think Karen should have been wrestled to the ground, put in a headlock and have a knee on her back. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just like how you mentioned what we want for crack users and opioid users is humanity and empathy. That's what we would like. This type of policing is what we would like to see for everyone. I would have liked to see that young black girl in Houston be treated with this level of deference and patience.
That's right.
In her interactions with the police. This is just a shining example of what policing could look like if we applied it across the board to all of our citizens.
Let me provide some more context. If all interactions with police for traffic stops, whatever it may be, if you saw that level of professionalism and that kind of demeanor, there would be no issue. There would be no issue whatsoever. But you don't. What you see is an unequal application of authority. That is what you see. I can easily remember, and hell, some of those incidents are on YouTube, of black folks who are respectful, who are saying, I'm keeping my hands here because I don't want to make sudden movements. And the officer still being aggressive and being extremely, extremely abusive with their language. And it still ultimately ends up in either a scuffle or an arrest because the officer could. This is, and I agree with you, Woz, this situation was a good policing situation. The person broke the law, they got pulled over, they got a citation. You play that, you play around with the text messaging while driving thing, you get a ticket, that's on you. But wow, she literally not only threatened him with mace by saying, you lucky I didn't have my mace. She then talks about, well, you approaching the car, I'm a female. Wait a minute. Wait a minute, the police officer has to approach the car to give you the ticket. I don't understand that. And here's what else you see here. The Karenicity in her does run deep. But see, that stuff don't really work on white cops like it works on other folks. And so he was kind of immune to it, right? So all of that Karenicity was just, he neutralized it. But it is quite fascinating that in that moment, what you saw was a white female willing to at least express a sentiment of violence against a police officer just for getting a traffic ticket.
I mean, we've seen that over and over where they come up with the resisting arrest thing where the guy's like, hold on, I'm not doing anything. Why are you arresting me? It's like, well, you mouthed off. Like oftentimes that's enough to get arrested by a cop, saying something that they did not like, period. We've seen that over and over and over again. And so, to watch this cop literally just walk away and say, well, I mean, I've had over 7,000 other interactions with people.
He been putting it in.
I mean, come on. 7,000 times and you would be the first 1 out of 7,000. I ain't no math expert, Dr. Richie, but that's a pretty low percentage.
Yeah. Let me get to this next story. There's this trend with Republicans to continue to compare everything to being a Nazi. Now, let's be very clear. Nazis are racist. They are racist people, okay? That's what you need in your background to be called a Nazi. Let's make that clear. Tomi Lahren is the latest right-winger to embrace Nazi analogies, to criticize restrictions and mitigations for COVID, okay? They're trying to mitigate it. They're trying to say, hey, we need to decrease it. Here are things you need to do. On Thursday on Fox News, the Outnumbered panel, which is a panel they do, a discussion around an airport incident with masks, led to this moment with Tomi accusing flight attendants of acting like Nazis of the air. Here's the video.
Tomi, I don't know about you. I live on planes. I know you do too, but I actually haven't seen anything like this, weirdly. So I feel like I should knock on wood though, because I'm gonna be on a plane tomorrow. But have you seen anything like this?
Listen, I fly almost every other week, and I'm actually flying through the Miami airport tomorrow. Bless up. It is a culture of lawlessness that is also taken to the airport and the skies. Don't be surprised. But I will disagree a little bit with Kaylee on this, and I don't honestly ever do this, but I will say there are so many good flight attendants out there, but there are some flight attendants out there that take their job as the mass police to extremes, becoming almost Nazis of the air, and it's ridiculous. It drops beneath your nose. They're constantly getting mad at you. It's no wonder people are getting frustrated. We still need to act, obviously, decently. There's no excuse for violence, but we need to lift the mask mandate in the air, and I have a feeling a lot of these issues will go away.
The enforcement of a company policy that says this private company says you do need to wear a mask and wear it properly, to them, that's like being a Nazi. So they want to have the choice to wear their mask or not. Is it not fascinating that finally Republicans believe in the freedom of choice? See how that works? Wow.
It's funny, Dr. Richie, that I would be careful if I was her. Somebody who appears to be as Aryan adjacent as Miss Lauren does to so often voluntarily invoke Nazism. Dolph might protest too much, Dr. Rich. I don't know. I'm just saying, if we're going off of appearances, that might be the case. But like you said, let's be clear here about what the Nazis did. It's called ethnic cleansing and genocide that was performed by the Nazis. Millions of people murdered, slaughtered, tortured in the name of ethnic cleansing. That's what they did. Basically, there is no higher crime on earth than the mass murder of a people for the fact that they are a people. So let's get that out the way. Yeah. And so to compare that to a mask mandate on a plane, I got some homies from the block who never even been on a plane before, much less be like, yo, I'm crying because they're asking me to wear a mask. You get to travel, you get to move around, you in a privileged position to even say that, basically what they're doing to you is comparable to what happened to the Jews in Nazi Germany. Come on now.
Yep, it's really insane and very sad and significantly insensitive. My friend, thank you so much, brother, for being on Indisputable. Tell everyone how they can follow you, check out your shows.
It's always a privilege to be here, but yes, check me out, BIGWOS, on every single social media platform. Make sure you subscribe to Woke Bros on every single podcast platform. Of course, make sure you're watching Wosny every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's the after hours show now, Dr. Richie, on the Twitch channel.
That's right.
And yeah, read and listen to everything that I'm doing on The Ringer, man. Go check out The Ringer whenever you guys get a chance if you have an interest at all in pop culture and sports.
Man, we appreciate. Always fun to have you on the show, brother. Have a great weekend, my friend. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got more on the other side. It's Indisputable.
Can you name the representative of your district?
The representative of my district, oof.
I have no idea.
I actually don't know who the representative of my district is.
Do you know what the corporate tax rate is?
I think it's pretty high. I should know this.
Like in between 20, 25%. I don't know.
How many amendments are in the US Constitution?
Oh no. This brings me back to grade school.
I should know this because I was a history major, but I do not remember.
I don't know that. I don't know.
I don't know.
I have no clue.
Nope. I don't know the answer to that one.
You don't know? I didn't know. It's time to change that. We live in the best country in the world.
We live in the most powerful country in the world. We love our American freedom, but only half of us take part in the political process. Only half of us vote. We don't fulfill our duties as US citizens to make this country a better place. It's time that we use our voices as a team, as a country, to become better. We will stand up. We will be empowered. We will stay educated and informed about politics every single day because it's our responsibility. And Politiscope just made it easy for you. So join me, join us, and let's be Americans.
How in the world are you going to get the right to vote if you don't already have the right to vote? That's impossible. Reason they tell you things are impossible is because they don't want you to try. It only took 7 years for that to get an amendment to get a right to vote.
Does this result in millions upon millions of Americans losing their coverage? And we've been waiting to find out, and now we know, yes, it will cut millions.
Public education was supposed to be the way to equalize everyone regardless of their socioeconomic status. But if you come from a family that's poor, how are you going to afford grade school for your kids?
This fight is about fairness and morality. It's about the American values.
You think that black people all across the country, in every city, were all lying when they said the police abuse us and the police kill us when they should? No, of course they weren't lying. Yes, it does happen. Yes, they do get targeted more.
Why are we going to put immigrants in prison for 5 years, which American taxpayers have to pay for, if we're so concerned with immigrants using up our so-called resources?
We're gonna do both. We're gonna fight Trump and we're gonna fight the establishment. It is not that hard. Yes, you can do both at the same time. Go tell them.
ShopTYT.com has new shirts like this one. And you're thinking, Cenk, what is that one? I can't see it other than the black. Yes, so I'll show it to you. If you can read this, you're not practicing social distancing. Yes! Now, you were practicing social distancing. This is over video. But overall, you get it. ShopTYT.com.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read some of these viewer comments. We got a lot of them. Indisputable TYT, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Indisputable TYT. All right, TYT member elected Miscellanea says, did those cops feel macho murdering a 63-year-old veteran in his sleep? It doesn't matter whether or not they had false information before going in. The man was asleep. Absolutely no threat. Exactly. Even if, and this is not what happened, but even if they went to the right home, the person was asleep and should not be dead. Mickey C, the silver-haired dragon. Mr. Clark was a precursor to Breonna Taylor and so many others. Her murderers followed the same steps from the false warrant to the cold-blooded murder. Yes. Super chat, YouTube. Rylan N. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. Tiger Katsuni. Dr. Richie, have you seen the Karen in Fort Worth, Texas that chased black kids on a playground with a knife? She called the cops and the cops put one of the kids in the squad car. Tara Rowling is her name. I did see a story about it, but I did not see the video. I will research that, thank you. Jeff Watson, really enjoying your show and commentary, Dr. Richey. Keep up the great work and holding folks accountable. We appreciate that, thank you so much for that. Just won me, haha, did she really think he wasn't going to walk up to her car? I guess he was supposed to yell out his conversation. She sounded like she was going to cry towards the end. Yeah, agreed. About the Nazi conversation on Fox, Jim Garcia, it's the only comparison that their base can relate to. That's probably correct. That's funny. Peace Love Dave says, oh my God, she pulled the I pay your salary card. She went there. Snake Anthony 210 Twitch says, I wonder if she gave the court clerk an earful. You know she did. The Karenicity inside just cannot help it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I have a great guest on the program today. Molly Jung-Fast, editor at large of the Daily Beast and author. We're gonna talk about this anti-birth control movement. You can follow some of the interesting things happening out of Missouri and other places, but it seems as if there's a blurring of the lines now about this. Molly, thank you for being on Indisputable. How are you?
Good, thank you for having me.
I'm glad you are talking about this issue because it really needs attention. Give some background to the anti-birth control movement happening right now.
You know, it's interesting because it's actually been happening since 2010 with Obamacare. There was this slow move to try to make it hard, try to make birth control not covered by Obamacare or by different insurers. And remember, there was the Hobby Lobby. You know, birth control has been a target of the right before, but what's happened now that's been really kind of alarming, and I saw it the last couple of weeks, which is what started me writing about it, was that there's been this sort of like move on birth control the way they've moved on abortion. So you saw Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that the morning after pill, which is a pill that causes you not to ovulate, but instead she was saying, well, that's an abortion pill, which of course it's not, it's a form of birth control. But again, it's like you see this fallow ground for them of trying to come after birth control. And it makes a lot of sense. And what we saw in this state legislature was there was this argument about how IUDs work, right? Were IUDs performing little abortions, which they weren't. But again, it was a way of trying to get at birth control. And what's happened is because Republicans now, because of these 3 Supreme Court justices who are Trump justices, we now have this very conservative Supreme Court. So Republicans know that they can do a lot of stuff they never could before. And they can kick up an abortion ruling and have these people either overturn Roe, which is a possibility, or kick it back to the states with this Casey Pennsylvania ruling, which I think is more likely.
Yeah, I actually do think that's more likely as well. I think this is going to end up becoming a state issue, which is going to be a disaster. You have no uniformity in the policy. But why do you think this issue remains at the center of Republican ideology when the truth is they will fight and put energy in something like this? But then these are the same individuals by way of policy, typically defunding programs that would actually help Planned Parenthood, that would actually help when the child is born, that would actually help with foster care and adoption funding. I'm a foster kid myself. I know what they do in the defunding area of policy as it relates to foster children. So how do they continue to make the claim that they care about life only inside the womb, but then defund money as it relates to life outside of the womb?
Yeah, there's so much hypocrisy in these Republican legislations that to start, abortion is just one of the many where Republicans, right? I mean, Republicans are like, you can't make me wear a mask, right? But But I can regulate your uterus. So I think ultimately there's just so much hypocrisy there. I think they like abortion because abortion is something that religious fundamentalists are connected to, right? And that gets the evangelicals going. We all know the statistics would show that in fact making abortion illegal doesn't prevent abortion. It just prevents safe abortion. So what's going to happen when you kick it back to the states is that, affluent women in blue states are going to be able to get abortions. It's going to be, poorer women in red states who are going to have to miss a day of work and drive 5 hours and have to, really risk their jobs and livelihoods and spend a lot of money to have abortions, and they're not going to be able to have safe abortions. And I think ultimately that's what we need to be highlighting, is that this is really about these women and making sure that they have access.
It continues to fascinate me that Republicans or conservative policies are typically on the wrong side of the sentiment of America. Like the vast majority of Americans, they're for birth control. They say, okay, that's fine. The vast majority of Americans are for a woman's right to choose. They say, okay, that's fine. And you can stack them up, Molly, you can stack them up line by line. Just policy, forget the partisanship. And the vast majority of Americans are for the left-leaning policy and against the right-leaning policy by way of public sentiment. However, Republicans have a strong messaging machine. And they have people in key places that can force these policies even when the vast majority of citizens of that state or citizens of this country are in disagreement.
Yeah. That's right. And I think that you see this, Republicans have very unpopular policies, but they have this kind of machine that Democrats don't have. So they're very good at messaging and they're very good at scaring their voters. And so they end up winning. I mean, I also think they're very good at cheating and they're doing a lot of kind of stuff behind the scenes that they're not supposed to be doing. But ultimately, yes, Democratic policies are much more popular. And the problem for Democrats is they're not very good at messaging. And so you have a problem like this.
Molly, I only have like a minute or two. You're doing what you're supposed to do. You're utilizing your platform, you're bringing attention to it, you're providing significant context so we understand the issue and we understand where it's coming from. But what can everyone else do? How can they push the ultimate agenda to make sure that our democracy does not erode under this corrupt leadership?
Well, that's a really good question. And I would say when it comes to Planned Parenthood, there's real opportunities for volunteering, right? There's opportunities to volunteer, to drive people, to work there, to help them. I mean, Planned Parenthood is one of the larger women's health clinics in America, and they help a lot of women from different socioeconomic backgrounds, and they do a lot besides abortion, but they do birth control and they do pap smears and they do a lot of women's health stuff. So if it were me, especially in a red state, where you could help with, being a driver for women. I mean, there's all sorts of really tangible ways to help with Planned Parenthood, and they're just a really great organization. So that would be my first step. But also, again, what Republicans are doing, right? What QAnon people are doing is they're running for the school board. So the best thing that Democrats can do is run for that school board too, right? Because we need sane people on the school boards and in these lower elected jobs.
Absolutely, very well said. Molly, thank you for your fight. You can come back to Indisputable anytime. We appreciate the work you do. All right, we got more. The Bullpen is up next.
Old school's pitched to me from Jake. It'll just be me, you, Jesus, Ben, and maybe Michael. And we're like, okay, cool. I can do that every week. As you can see, me, Jesus, Ben.
When you make the order, it says, don't exceed $20.01. So I'll just order literally anything to get it as close to that as I possibly can.
I'm sorry that I ordered $45 worth of food and got an email saying, sir, would you like to rethink that? What are you talking about?
I was in hell. I was just like, oh my God, the theater's empty, nobody's here. Everyone on screen keeps fucking cursing. Why did I let this happen? And the whole thing looks like it was shot through a glass of milk. My mom's gonna be so mad.
If you're looking for a heart attack, the short way, baby.
Wrong, I did put mayonnaise on it. I'm the most in shape, overweight person you'll find.
That's right.
He was like, why didn't you answer my call? I called you 39 times.
Yuck. But what makes you stop right before 40? What makes you say, nah, man, I ain't doing that no more. I'm cool.
And I called you back on the air. And I was like, okay, Kevin Smith, big shot. What the
you said you'd come on and you didn't come on.
I'm sure I took that very well.
Yeah, you did. You called me back the next day and said, I thought it was 7 a.m. There's now deep fake porn. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
Heard of it? I just had some in the car.
I'll tell you who I'm not Ben Mankiewicz. Have you guys ever felt that?
Not ever.
And now it's just the three of us.
This is the intimate hour.
By the way, the last half hour of this, we're not even rolling.
Fair enough.
Kingsley.
See, I watch movies.
I'm done with both of you.
Once Craig starts laughing, I can't stop. And I was just gonna ask you about getting high.
Snoogans, Snoochie Boochies.
And members, of course, you can get the whole damn thing. TYT.com, join and free trial.
I'm old school with the old folks.
Good
John, come back.
Electric cars are awesome, but they aren't the best tool for every job. You can't park them on the edge of the sidewalk while you run into the store for a few things. On top of that, an electric car is just financially out of reach for many people. That's where Zoom electric scooters come in. When I say electric scooter, I'm talking about small motorcycles with space in front of you to put your feet. The Zoom scooter has a range of 60 miles, offers a smooth ride up to 40 miles per hour, and can be charged from any electrical outlet. Start saving on gas while reducing your carbon footprint. To find out more, go to tyt.com/Zoom. Enter the code TYT50 to get an additional discount.
I'm Brett. I would like to refer to this segment as the Do I Still Have This Talent show. So I want to see if I can play harmonica without my hands. I don't know why I have that. Nothing's gonna be more impressive than that. I can also spin a basketball on my finger. While drinking. I'm gonna spin a basketball on my finger while drinking apple juice. You can do this, dude. It's also flat. I don't know if that helps or hurts. And it seems to be somewhat wobbly. Ta-da! Nope, I don't know how to do this one. This one's a fail. Nope. Oh God, I'm so mad.
Our community faces a never-before-seen public health and economic crisis. Businesses are calling Levin Papantonio with their legal questions regarding COVID-19. You've asked and we've answered. If you're a business owner and have suffered financial loss or closure from COVID-19 and have questions regarding your insurance policy, call us for a free consultation. Some policies may provide coverage for lost profits and earnings. Stay safe, and together we'll get through this.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Let me read a couple of these comments. And thank you all for chiming in. Twitch, Drew in Georgia says the elimination of access to safe abortions inevitably leads to unsafe abortions. Yes, correct. Alaskan Snow Dragon 2021. I got it right that time, by the way. The GOP is using 1984 and The Handmaid's Tale as textbooks. Yeah, sounds about right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. In the Bullpen today, I have Congressional Republican candidate Ronda Baldwin-Kennedy, who's running for California's 26th Congressional District. We're gonna chop it up about a few things. Law enforcement, maybe some stuff about guns. Let's get it. Good day, Ronda Baldwin-Kennedy, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for being on the show. So let's get into law enforcement first. I do not want to presume what you believe about law enforcement or what is needed inside of law enforcement. What's your take on policing in America today?
Well, as a criminal defense attorney, I see it from all sides. And I think training is the key. Do we have some problems inside some police departments? Yes, we do. But we also have very good officers who do their jobs and do their jobs well. And we shouldn't lump all the officers together, the whole entire police force together for those few bad apples. I actually have a case where an officer was arrested for falsifying a police report and destruction of evidence. And I was commended by other police officers for having that officer arrested and representing that client because that weeds them out.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. Unfortunately, we hear a lot of other cases where a police officer commits an act of criminality, and then there is an actual cover-up from that agency. I've highlighted a few of them on my show today. And naturally, that's not the way good policing should operate. I actually agree with you, madam. I agree with you that this is not about all police officers, but it is about bad police officers. But let me put it in another context for you. And this context is a little graphic, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Remember when Catholic priest or the Catholic Church was on the chopping block nationally and internationally because of their abuse to children? Remember that?
I do.
Now, all Catholic priests did not sexually molest children. We know that. We know that those that did represented a minority of the priests who were in the priesthood inside of the Catholic Church. But here's the issue. If you as a priest are unwilling to step up and say something or do something, then once the culture of your industry is judged, you have brought that judgment on yourself as well, because you did not speak up as a member of that agency and speak out against the insanity and the evil being done by members of your organization, by colleagues that you work with. So here's what you see happening with policing. You have some good police officers, right? You have bad police officers. But if you are a good cop and you say absolutely nothing about the bad police officers who are around you, number one, you're not as good as you think you are. And number two, you are part of why the entire industry of policing will end up being judged, because you have failed to actually aggressively go against the culture of bad policing. Tell me why I'm wrong in that assessment.
Well, you're wrong in that assessment in the part where people don't speak up and officers don't speak up, because us as a society and the higher ups, we don't protect those officers. It's just like when someone witnesses a crime and they don't come forward, and they should come forward and say, hey, I witnessed that crime. This is so-and-so was the one that committed the murder. But they're afraid to step forward and be a witness. Well, can you imagine being a police officer and you're violating that blue wall, right? They're gonna be targeted. So what we have to do as a society is let the police officers know it's okay to come forward. You're gonna get protection. But when everyone's against the police, they don't feel secure to come forward and tell what's going on inside. They only feel protected by their fellow men and women in blue. So we need to stop the culture of attacking police and embracing those police that can come forward and rat out the bad police officers. And I think it comes up from a higher up too, is where when higher ups in the department should have whistleblower protection, right?
Yeah.
And protect those officers. So yeah.
So let's talk about what you're saying. So I do not buy your argument that it is our fault that police do not come forward. Now that's when you said that we have to protect them. No, I don't have to protect a damn thing. My job. Well, let me finish, madam. I allowed you to finish. My job is to make sure I call balls, and strikes. They're already getting paid to do a job. They literally took an oath to uphold the law, to uphold the Constitution, to be executives in law enforcement. So they took an oath to do a particular job. Saying that they're not able to do their job in justice properly because of what people are saying, to be critical of them or to be supportive of them, I do not buy that argument. I do buy the other side of your argument about the leadership of law enforcement, but that comes down to policy. I do believe we should have whistleblower protections for police officers. You and I completely agree on that. So let's go to a policy dynamic. Do you support the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act?
In some parts, not fully. I think it's a slippery slope. And I have to say, first of all, as an attorney, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution. So
all of them did. Giuliani did that. Hell, all of them took that oath. Even the ones in jail took that oath.
So we're talking about Ronda Kennedy right now. Ronda Kennedy took that oath, and
but nobody brought up your credibility or credentialing as an attorney. I know the law school you graduated from. I know you got your BA from Ashford. You got your law degree from Heritage. I know that. I understand that you're an attorney, and I respect that. But we're not talking about your credentialing. We're talking about the credentialing of law enforcement.
I thought you asked me my opinion on the George Floyd Policing Act. That's what you're at.
Right, your opinion on it. I'm not asking for your credentialing. I'm not attacking your credentials, madam.
No, I'm saying that I believe in some of it and parts of it.
Right.
And why I don't believe in its entirety is because I'm a constitutionalist and I believe in protecting the Constitution. And sometimes bad things happen, and we can't guise them over bad things happen and violate people's constitutional rights.
What parts of the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act are unconstitutional?
Well, when it comes to me and my safety, when I have an officer that hesitates, because they're afraid that they're going to get prosecuted for acting. For example, in Wisconsin, my home state, when that officer, the shooting there, where the officer let that gentleman go around the car, get into the car, reach into the car before they took any action. What if he detonated a bomb? There was innocent people who were there in the apartment complexes and on the street who could have been harmed because police officers are hesitating. And when hesitation happens, they jeopardize citizens like myself, my children, and any other people that are on the street. It's a hesitation for action because they don't want to get ridiculed, prosecuted, or picketed.
So my question to you, madam, was what part of the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act you find to be unconstitutional? Now, that's what you said. You said you don't agree with all of it because you are a constitutional officer. You took an oath to uphold the Constitution. Which part of the actual policy is adversarial to the actual Constitution?
Taking away certain parts of immunity, having to go through certain tests prior to being a police officer.
Ma'am, but that has nothing to do with the Constitution.
It does have to do with the Constitution. It's called due process.
Okay, so let's have
process.
Okay, let's have a due process argument. Qualified immunity is what you're talking about, I assume. Is that what you're referring to? That police officers should be able to retain qualified immunity, and in the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act, it chips away at that qualified immunity. Is that what you're saying?
It chips away at qualified immunity, yes.
Okay, here's the thing. Qualified immunity is not constitutional. As a matter of fact, qualified immunity wasn't even really created until roughly 1958, 1960 and beyond. And qualified immunity was there by state government, state legislatures passed this qualified immunity statute, not constitutional element, but just a statute to stop or to create a barrier between white cops who bashed in the heads of young black civil rights leaders and children. And so they said, we don't want them to be personally liable for this particular activity. So there was this qualified immunity created to do so. Now, remember, nobody's arguing that the elimination of qualified immunity is somehow unconstitutional. You've already had it chipped away in the state of Georgia by way of a vote referendum throughout the state. You've had it chipped away and eliminated in New York and some other places. So I don't see how you're saying that getting rid of qualified immunity is somehow unconstitutional, because there's nothing in the Constitution that says, madam, that police officers must have qualified immunity to do their job, which would mean that every cop before the 1960s was literally operating outside of the US Constitution, if that were true.
That is true. That is absolutely true.
Where is it at in the Constitution that police officers should have qualified immunity? Where is that at in the Constitution?
So you do understand that every state law and every law that is made is derived from the Constitution and cannot violate the Constitution. There is immunity in the Constitution.
Where? What clause? What amendment?
Or you want to call me on the spot? Can I get my Constitution out?
Yes, ma'am, you can. I'll give you some time.
Okay, I will get my Constitution out. That's why judges, legislators, the president, they all have immunity that's enumerated in the Constitution. But
what immunity does a police officer have in the US Constitution from criminal charges? What immunity do they have?
Like you said, the state legislators have enacted those laws.
That's statutory, madam. You're an attorney. You understand the difference?
Can I finish?
Yes, ma'am, but I just want to make sure.
No, I do understand the difference. Statutory law, okay, is derived from the 10th Amendment in the Constitution. There is no law that is made that is not in compliance or derives from the Constitution. So when states make laws, they're deriving their power from the Constitution in the 10th Amendment.
Okay, so let me challenge that first of all. You have failed to establish that getting rid of qualified immunity is in fact unconstitutional by way of constitutional mandate or amendment. The other part is we have passed many laws in the United States of America that were adversarial to the actual US Constitution. So statutorily, you have had laws passed that were contrary to the actual Constitution of the United States. That's why you have a Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has the job of being the chief appellate court in the United States of America in order to overturn statutes that have been done or case law that has been created that is adverse to the actual Constitution.
But qualified immunity has not been overturned by the Supreme Court.
Well, but qualified immunity is not a Supreme Court issue because it is not a federal issue, madam. Come on now. It is a state issue. It is a state issue and state governments. Ma'am, go ahead.
Okay, let's give a legal lesson here about it. It does not have to be a federal issue. Okay, it has to be a federal question or a constitutional question.
Correct.
That is a constitutional question, whether or not officers have due process or.
Well, madam, they have due process.
They don't have. Whether or not they have, no, they don't have due process.
Police officers do not have due process presently?
In California, they do not. Last year, there was a bill after George Floyd, there was a bill that was passed that's being challenged right now because it basically took the due process away from law enforcement. And that's why we have a shortage in law enforcement. That's why crime is rising. We're trying to solve the problem with a nuclear weapon instead of doing it strategically and surgically. We're just coming in and just blowing it all up. Is there a problem in America with some police officers? Yes. Do we handle it by blowing up the house? No.
So let me go to another point in the discussion because we're starting to run out of time.
Okay.
You understand the power of tort law. Tort law has been very effective at becoming a de facto regulator in various industries. The reason why surgeons, for example, have to contort to a particular standard is because of tort law and the liability associated with negligence. And because if they act in a way that is negligent, they will in fact be liable for that gross negligent activity, which has created a better version of that industry for all of us to benefit from. So you're telling me that a psychiatrist, a medical doctor, a professor can all be liable under tort law, and those industries can produce a better regulated operation for the regular person, but police officers should not be under the same liability of tort law.
Okay, as a prosecutor who prosecutes civil cases against like big manufacturers like Amazon who sells defective products. Let me tell you they have tort reform, okay, by California, which made actually it worse for the medical industry because now they have medical malpractice caps on them. So it doesn't make it safer for patients. It actually makes it worse because no attorney will take a malpractice case because the damages are capped. And that policy, it wasn't the Republican side, it was the Democrat side who did tort reform on the state levels, which totally decimated that industry. And yeah, I think they do. I'm suing an officer right now for what they did to my client because that was intentional. That was
right, and that was wrong. But see, here's the thing: that officer should have a liability connected to him or her personally as well. When you operate in a way that is grossly negligent within even the context of your duties, I don't think you should have qualified immunity. Let me give an example.
Immunity goes bye-bye at that point. You don't have.
I agree. So on that, madam, we actually agree with. Let me tell you what Georgia did, and I know I'm running out of time. Okay. Georgia put it on the ballot. They said, okay, we're just gonna let everybody in the state vote for it. Georgia is still a Republican state, even though we have 2 US senators that are Democrats, it is still a Republican state, make no mistake about it. Those voters said, you gotta end qualified immunity. So in the state of Georgia, the law now says each Superior Court judge can set aside qualified immunity case by case, which I think it gets us where we need to go. But madam, it's not unconstitutional. That was my point. It is fair to look at it from a nuanced perspective. Well,
to not have any due process, to be acting in your official capacity and doing your job without being negligent, without committing a crime, you should have immunity. You should not be, but I think having it by case basis is reasonable. Yeah. But having it as you're just doing your job and you actually didn't do anything negligent or
but that's arguable and always debatable, right? I get the idea of not having mens rea, which is you are actually trying to commit a crime, right? You had the formation of thought to commit a crime. But if you are acting in a way that is grossly negligent, that is criminally negligent, and you had a disregard of human life in the function of your official duties, you should be held criminally, civilly, and personally and professionally responsible. And that's my only argument.
That's the current law. You can't, if you're grossly negligent, yeah.
Ma'am, that is not the current application of the rule.
I just stripped away immunity for the Board of Supervisors in San Joaquin County and federal court. It's not absolute.
Okay, and I agree. There are debates and arguments court by court on that kind of case by case basis. Real quick before you go, do you believe Okay, welcome back. We had a slight technical issue. I still have Ronda Baldwin-Kennedy, congressional candidate, California's 26th Congressional District. She is a Republican. A Democrat currently occupies that seat. She's running in that election. Let me ask you a couple of questions before you go. We got a few minutes. Do you agree with making a federal database of police misconduct, basically bad actors in policing?
Yes, so that other departments can search for that. Yes, I do.
Okay, and being a lawyer, you already know there are a lot of departments that hire police officers and they are unaware of what happened at the last police agency unless that state has a rule for disclosure, or the police officer will will tell on themselves, right? Self-disclose. All right, do you agree that there should be a prohibition to racial, religious profiling by law enforcement agencies?
Well, yeah, that's not legal now, but yeah.
All right, so this will be a federal prohibition, and it would also mandate state and federal governments to do discriminatory profile training. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Use federal grants to help communities establish commissions and task forces to study police reform. So the federal government will pay you to study how to do reform locally in your area. Do you agree with that?
I partially agree with that, as long as that also includes outreach to the community and mending relationships between the community and the police. Yes.
Good stuff. The ban of no-knock warrants in federal drug cases and the ban of chokeholds.
Yes.
Now, with the exception of the use of federal grants, which you still agree with most of that, and the issue of qualified immunity, which by the way, you actually agree with 50% of it, case by case, you're okay with that. What I have just listed to you is the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act. So it sounds like to me when we break it up by policy, right, by looking at what's actually in the bill, conservatives like yourself, you all are probably, I would say 80, 85% there on much of this stuff. And that actually bears out in the data. 95% of Americans are for police reform, 58% say it must be dramatic, and even 51% of Republicans believe some level of police reform is necessary. So why can't we get it done?
Because it should not be done in legislation. It should be done in the courtrooms. It's just a case by case. That's what I agree. I think it's a case by case basis. If you do that, if you legislate it, you tie the judge's hands, and the person is in front of that judge. And I think it should be up to the judicial branch and not the legislative branch. Well,
I think it needs to work hand in glove. I think there needs to be a policy for the judiciary to rule on. But I got it. You got your answer in. I appreciate you. I'm flat out of time. Thank you so much for being in the bullpen on Indisputable.
It was lovely. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. Welcome. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, remember, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.